All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on The Record with OPD. We have Captain Jones and Captain Holmgren. Respectively, they're working with Ceasefire and the newly created Violent Crime Operations Center, VCOC.
Correct.
Let me start with you, Captain Jones. You've been part of Ceasefire for a long time now, right?
Since 2011, yes.
That's a few minutes.
Yes.
So talk to me, what is Ceasefire? What is it all about?
So Ceasefire is it's a couple of things, right? Overall, it's a strategy, a department-wide or city strategy to address specifically gun violence in Oakland. It's a partnership between OPD, the community, and our law enforcement partners that we have in the surrounding jurisdictions, as well as our federal partners. The main goals of Ceasefire is to reduce recidivism, obviously to reduce gun violence, and to build stronger community partnerships. There's essentially kind of two components to Ceasefire. The first one is obvious. We really have a serious reliance on data to guide us, to allow us to focus in on only those individuals that are involved in gun violence, right? Even within gangs, right? We track gangs and groups in the city, but even within gangs, not everybody is a shooter, or not everybody carries guns or involved themselves in those activities. And I think that what the data has told us is that there's a very small percentage of people in Oakland who are driving a large amount of the violence. And if we use intelligence, data, and focus on those individuals, you can see an enormous impact on violent crime. And that's what happened in Oakland when we, were historically over 100 homicides beginning in, 2012 when we first started this. I think we're at 124. And then we got it, all the way down to like 60. I don't remember the exact number, but in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And so the strategy works. It's been evaluated by Northeastern University. It's a really, really effective strategy, but the key is just really focusing on the data to guide you instead of, just doing random policing or doing things that you think may be effective, and just really, really relying on the data. And then the other component of it is working with the community to really give people who we know are involved in these activities that could land them in jail, opportunities to do different things, opportunities to avoid the police, opportunities to avoid incarceration. So there's a number of community-based organizations that we work with, and we also work with the city-run Department of Violence Prevention to offer services to people who we know are at risk of either shooting somebody or getting shot or ending up in custody. And what we do is the main format we have to utilize or to operate in that manner is what we call a call-in. It's where we call in individuals who are involved in, at that particular moment, involved in active conflicts in the city. And the police and law enforcement, our federal partners, deliver a message to the young men or women who attend these meetings of what could happen to them if they continue on the activities that they're involved in. And then we leave. And then service providers, community members are there to message them, to let them know that there are alternatives. And the goal is for us to let them know what their exposure is with us, the police and enforcement, and nudge them towards services so they could, do something different than being in our city in the streets, shooting people and carrying guns and all of the different things that give Oakland a reputation of being a dangerous city.
Got it. And Captain Holmgren, now you're part of heading the VCOC. What exactly is that? I know it's been around for about a month. We introduced it to the media about earlier this month. What is it all about?
Correct. I think it's important for us to kind of take a look back and kind of look at how we got here a little bit. I think what we saw last year, especially around June, was where we really started seeing this uptick in significant violent crime. I think the department, and it wasn't just Oakland, wasn't unique to Oakland. We saw some of these incidents across the country, and the department had really been benefiting from all of the success of the ceasefire strategy. But last year around June, we really started seeing this increase in our homicides, increase our shootings. And traditionally what we would do is we would kind of call upon our crime reduction teams to work in a centralized component by assigning them tasks that are based on criminal intelligence, criminal information, data, and being very specific and having a centralized citywide approach. We would use that to try to combat some of that, the spikes in crime that we're seeing. So as this violent crime has been continuing to take us into 2021, when we're seeing homicides, showing a year-to-date increase of 200% at some times, shootings are up, 100% in some cases. I think with Chief Armstrong had this idea of, if we were taking something that we were successful during these moments at time, why don't we make that as a permanent philosophy, a permanent structure within the organization? So about a month now, Chief Armstrong directed us to restructure our crime reduction teams under the Violent Crime Operations Center. And it's currently housed under the Bureau of Investigation. And it's important for us to be there because we work hand in hand with our Criminal Investigation Division, going after the intelligence that's going to help them successfully solve their crimes, right? Successfully going to bring us to the arrest, apprehension, and prosecution of not just any crimes. We're talking specifically violent crimes. I think that is one of the key components to how we're structured, is that we are going after those that are willing to pull the trigger, those that have made an unfortunate decision that they need to take somebody's life, and are putting our community at this enhanced harm, and that we have to be nimble, we have to be very effective and efficient to go after these individuals before they cause further harm. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what the Violent Crime Operations Center is about. It has two components to it. There is an intelligence center, right, that gets information out and seeks it from all kinds of sources. From our total engagement from an organization, we have Monday crime meetings where all of the executives and area command are on the phone every morning with the chief and the deputy chiefs to talk about the previous 24 hours. We have our Ceasefire partners and our Ceasefire shooting reviews that we take part of, and we also receive information from open sources. We take all of that information and distribute that after vetting it, after conducting an analysis on it, to our officers so that they are better informed when they choose to make stops, that it's not just discretionary stops, that they're intelligence informed stops, helping them guide to being more efficient, more effective with our resources. And then we have their operations side. And each day, our operations components, which are comprised of operations teams 1, 2, and 3, that have a citywide approach to addressing and conducting violent crime operations, right? So if we have an area of the city that is significantly suffering from violent crime, then that's where we'll be concentrating, going to cultivate those cases, working with our investigators to get those that there are active warrants for their arrest, and hopefully having a significant impact in reducing violent crime in those areas. And
together, you work together to move forward to reduce crime here in Oakland. Crime, as we said, homicides are up 181%. You have 45 homicides to date, where we had 16 the same time last year. Without going into the details in your strategy, what exactly are you guys doing together and separately to reduce those numbers?
I'll take a swing at that first. I think to address that, we have to understand why that occurred, right? There were a number. We found ourselves, to nobody's fault, in a once-in-a-100-year pandemic, right? Schools were closed, recreation centers are closed, no youth sports. Everybody's lives were turned upside down. A lot of things that were in place to support OPD and Ceasefire and how we manage violence in the city were kind of removed with COVID. Our ability to keep people in custody who we know are involved in gun violence, who we capture with dangerous weapons, weren't able to keep them off of the street because of a lot of different reasons that were beyond our control. And so what we have done is we've been working really close with the district attorney. We've worked with the judges in the Bay Area to stress to them how important it is that they take into consideration the unintended consequences of some of the policies that were put in place, the zero bail being the main thing, the impact that was having on the streets. And I think the statistics showed that. And fortunately, we were able to make that change for us. And so we're working through that. And with the shift to the VCOC, I mean, it's a different way of policing than we've done in the last 20 years. And it's a month into it. So some kinks we have to work out in that. But the main thing that we need to keep doing is relying on data, focusing on the right people who we know are involved in gun violence, supporting each other, and constantly communicating throughout the police department and sharing information with our partners so that we can maintain that laser focus on people who we know are involved in shootings. But that's our goal. We're not in the business of, at least his operation and mine, or we aren't in the business of, arresting somebody for something petty. The small things that occur in the city. Not saying that they aren't important, but for the two people who are sitting here, our main priority is dealing with the gun violence. And we just have to we can't wave the white flag because we're in the middle of a pandemic. A bunch of things aren't, available to us that used to be. We just have to keep fighting, keep working with the community, and keep pressing forward until we get it under control. And I really believe that at some point in the very near future that we will.
Captain Holmgren, let me ask you this question then. I know you do, besides just the homicides, there's shootings are off the hook in the city. You both have been here for more than 2 decades, and I know you take it personal. This is your city. I know you're from this city. Mm-hmm. You've adopted the city, basically. How does it affect you personally when you go into these jobs and seeing and hearing these numbers, which are not numbers, these are people?
You know what? You take the badge away from this and you put there's the heart behind the badge, right? And having doing this job for 22 years, when we have the last 48 hours that we've had where we're seeing hundreds of rounds of firearms being shot in communities, right? I can see my little son, I can see my little daughter and attempt to imagine what that must be like if they were at home and hearing the sounds of these firearms being discharged in their community. What kind of trauma that will cause. And I think that is the catalyst that pushes us to go out and work under these very extreme, challenging circumstances. And using the resources, using the data, using technology, making sure that if we don't have the bandwidth to do it, that we're not just operating in a silo, but that we're calling our other law enforcement partners to come assist, that we're calling upon our community partners, our Department of Violence Prevention, our other services to come out there so that we can put our arms around a community that is experiencing this trauma and do something about it. I think that's the piece that resonates the most with us and calls us back to why we all chose this vocation. Right, is because we want to help, right? And I could see that communities, I could see that families, I could see that they're hurting from the amount of gunfire that's being discharged in their communities, and I think that's what pushes not just our units, but this entire department to try to make an impact on it.
How much has things changed? I know, Captain Jones, you said when you started, the numbers were skyrocketing, more than 100 homicides.
Right.
You brought those numbers down, but right now, at this current trend, if we continue this spot we're going, every 3 days, one person's dying. How has it changed from when you started to where we are? Is it the same? Is it an ebb and flow kind of situation?
No, it's still not as bad as when I first started here. And even when I worked in homicide for almost 10 years. We used to regularly have 130, 140 homicides in Oakland. And so it hasn't, we will ensure that it doesn't get that bad ever again here. But it is really bad now. There is a lot of firearms on the streets, and the type of weaponry that we're seeing is unlike any time I've experienced since I've been here at OPD, and that's 26 years. There's a lot of machine guns, high-power rifle, high-capacity magazines. And we've been working really close with our partners at the ATF to figure out exactly how these guns are making it to the Oakland streets. We've also had a proliferation of ghost guns.
Let me stop right there. Explain to people what a ghost gun is.
A ghost gun is essentially a gun, a kit that you could purchase and assemble a firearm legally. It doesn't have a serial number on it. It can't be traced. The manufacturers found a loophole in the law and made it so that you can buy these kits and basically put your own gun together at home. and these guns are have found their way to the Oakland streets. So those are challenges, right? And those are things that we have to work with, really rely on our partners at the ATF to help us fight that battle. In addition to the local legislators lobbying for changes in the law to make sure that, to make it illegal for somebody to go buy a box and go in their kitchen and put together a firearm that can't be traced. So those are, that's a challenge for us. But I think it is really the streets in Oakland right now. Even when I talk to people who I've maintained relationships with, who were once involved in that kind of stuff, the social media and the way that the groups and the gangs use social media in the city really adds a lot of fuel and creates a lot of chaos in the streets. And so that's something that's a challenge for us. And so we do what we can about that. I don't want to go into
I get
too many secrets here.
I'm just talking about. So let me ask.
Can I just add on just some of that?
Yeah,
Sure. I think the amount of guns that are on the street right now is something that is of the utmost concern for us right now. I think right now the department has recovered about 330 to 340 firearms already, and we're only in April still. I think last year, we maybe recovered excess of 1,300 plus guns. These are firearms that people can just easily get in their possession, and then you carry that over to these sudden disputes that we're seeing where, it's outside of the group and gang. You and I have some disagreement, and I'm willing to pull the trigger and take your life, right? That is something significant, right? That is something that there used to be like rules to the game, right? But now, there were certain things that were off limits. Now it doesn't seem to be that way in some regard, right? Our juvenile population is demonstrating a lot more at-risk behavior, whether in the offender or the victim lane. And if we don't do something as a community to wrap our arms around this, because this is not just a justice system process, because the justice system isn't set up, right, to deal with some of the challenges that the police department is dealing with some of these increase. We're not talking petty crimes, we're talking violent crimes being committed by young offenders. We're talking armed robberies, armed carjackings, right? And the system is not set up to help support these young individuals from going this course that we have seen from our experience only leads to despair and negative consequences. So I think I just want to add that piece about the increase in guns in the juveniles that we're seeing right now, and the really need for a holistic community to wrap their arms around and help us through this.
Well, speaking on that, you said carjackings. Carjackings are up 149% over last year. I know that's also within the VCOC, and you had a case earlier this week where you took 4 people into custody and got some dangerous firearms off the street. Is this connection with the VCOC, it's only been a month, but do you see it, is it working? Is it trending in the right direction?
I think it is. I think it's still I think we have an opportunity in front of us right now to significantly take the Oakland Police Department and advance it to a level that some of our fellow brothers and sisters in law enforcement haven't experienced. I'm proud to wear this patch, right, and represent what we represent here, especially with regard to how we police. I say all that to say that we are still challenged with resources, right? At the end of the day, I think we have total field members of this department right now is at 711. I think we're authorized 788, right? So you see the gap right there. That doesn't take into consideration some officers sometimes get injured, other leaves of absence, things like that. So I think we have a real opportunity for us to make a difference with violent crime. In just a month, we have made numerous arrests for serious violent subjects, probably around 12 to 13 homicide suspects that were taken into custody, and we're still building this as we go. I think the support that we've received from the executive levels here at the department is setting us up for success, but we got to continue to move the ball forward.
All right. And as you said, I know right now this homicide detectives have made 17 arrests this year on charged cases, excuse me. So there's probably been more arrests than that. I'm going to wrap it up here, give you guys both an opportunity to say something, but let me look at one of the questions here. Right now, people are wondering, what can the community do? You know, a lot of times officers are called in after the fact. What can they do proactively? I know Ceasefire has walks and stuff like that, but what do you think, sir?
So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, if you see something, say something. No, there's a lot of things that the community can be doing to get involved, right? Especially on the mentoring side of things, right? There, the Department of Violence Prevention, which was created to help us or to complement OPD in its effort to reduce gun violence. They have very limited resources in their ability to intervene in young people's lives. So any volunteering or mentoring that could be done by citizens or community groups out there to help some of the young people in Oakland is welcome. We do night walks in areas that are statistically some of the most challenged areas economically, you know, everything, right? The areas that are the most trouble, we try to go into those areas and do night walks. Once a month, we have vigils at locations in East or West Oakland that are coordinated by Bishop Jackson at Acts Full Gospel, where people come out and we invite the friends and family members of, you know, victims of homicides, recent homicides. Community members could come to that and show support for the victims' families, and just, you know, come and be with the people and show support. That's just some of the things I'm thinking about right now.
I also think with the resources and the staffing challenges that we have to be very efficient and very effective with the resources that we do have. And I think that there is an opportunity here to utilize technology to help us out. Investigators are able to get the information and evidence that they need to successfully identify and close their cases with surveillance video. Surveillance video goes a long way, and being able to maybe utilize that technology in a manner that is respective and guards against privacy concerns, but also is receptive to some of the dangers and the challenges that we're seeing with gun violence in certain communities is something that I think we could recommend. And I'd also just close by saying that communities have a voice and need to reach out to their elected leaders. That public safety shouldn't be an option. It should be a priority in this city. And to let them know how they envision public safety. And I think the more that we see that, the more we see this community engagement, that will help us in the future as we all navigate this together.
You're right.
I have one more thing too. And this is something that we've been trying to figure out for a very long time here, right? At least especially within Ceasefire. We have to find a way to mobilize larger segments of the community when people are killed in our city, right? So what happens now, somebody gets shot, they get killed, the police come, we do our thing and we leave. Maybe one or two officers will go back and talk to the neighborhood and try to explain to them going on. But the impression that could leave to the person who did it and their friends is that this person didn't matter. Because like nobody cares, there's no outrage from the community, nobody's demanding anything. And I feel like we have to find a way to get the people out to these places and these locations where people are losing their lives, not necessarily to partner with the police, right? 50 people in one cop is more powerful than 51 cops in one place. Because it makes everybody feel safer, it makes the community feel supported, they don't feel like it's an occupying force there. So we have to find a way to, when these terrible things happen in the community, to get everybody out, to support the neighbors, to say enough is enough, and to demonstrate to the person that did it and the people who do things like that, that this person mattered and we are here to support the neighborhood. And just we have to find a way to figure that part of it out. And I think if we do that, then people will think twice about shooting someone, you know, in our city streets, because the way it stands right now, that people get shot, nobody has anything to say, and it doesn't feel like there's outrage. And the community should also be calling down here and putting heat on us when things happen in the street. What are you guys doing about this? We need answers. You know what I mean? What can you do to support our neighborhood? There was 60 shots in front of our house last night. What are you doing about it? Put some heat on us. Hold us accountable when these things are happening. So that's another thing I really, really like to see more of from our community, because I live in Oakland too, and these things affect me. My family lives primarily in East Oakland, and these things affect me on a personal level.
Okay. Give you both an opportunity to have any final words for closing. Since we started with you, Captain Jones, I will let you kick it off.
It's been fun. I'm here to answer any questions.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's good to have this dialogue, and I also agree with Captain Jones about holding us accountable, right? I think we all have skin in this game. We all need to be held accountable, right? And this is together as a community that we can move this ball forward.
So let me ask you, I do have one more question. You made me think of a question there. You mean hold you accountable. What can the community do? I heard you say give us a call, that kind of situation, but a lot of people in the community don't feel like they have that power. They don't feel like they have that voice. What else can they do?
But we have to find, we're doing something wrong at OPD then, because we have to let them know that they do. If 200 shots are fired in front of somebody's house, he and I should be feeling some heat. And that heat should roll downhill to the officers and supervisors that work for us. And when these things happen, and
well, let me ask you a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Because looking at it from officers' standpoint, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know that the shooting was going to happen. They don't know 200 rounds were going to be fired off. So how do you do the combination of community involvement? Maybe the community needs to pick up the phone and report, or just the balance?
So I think the balance is the police, right? We're here to keep the community safe. And we can agree 200 rounds being fired in somebody's house is completely unacceptable. On another level, unacceptable, right? And I think that it's our job to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And when the community rises up and says, hey, what are you, Captain Jones, Captain Holmgren, or OPD, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? What's the plan? So when the community rises up and demands that accountability from us, it forces us, right, to constantly focus on these things and have answers. Right?
Let me ask you then.
Yeah.
Last night this happened. What are you going to do? You're putting heat on yourself right now. What are you going to do? 100 rounds roughly in someone's neighborhood. What are you guys going to do?
So this is how it works. So we had 100 shots fired, right? And he and I don't have the luxury of just seeing, okay, we had 100 shots and we keep watching TV, right? So the phones start ringing, constant communication. He and I quickly figured out who was doing the shooting. We started maneuvering, putting pieces into place to make that arrest, and putting staff and resources in areas that retaliation could occur to make sure that it didn't happen somewhere else.
Right. So another component of that is through the Violent Crime Operations Center, the intel component is getting that intelligence and information out to patrol officers in almost real time. Yeah. Right, so they hear this stuff coming up. There's officers, investigators that are up there listening to this. They're saying, okay, well, we had a shooting that occurred over here. There's potentially this group or gang stuff going on right now, or this particular group or gang neighborhood just got shot up. Who could potentially that be? Okay, hey, in a preventative way, this could be this person, so we need to have extra officers, call down to the watch commander, have some other resources here, have some units that are parked out here, right? Call DVP, hey, is there something going on over there? Can we have maybe some interrupters be over here in this particular neighborhood at this time? Things like that. Until we find out, okay, through evidence and preliminary investigations, a follow-up investigation, who is responsible, and then being nimble and very direct about it, and then going after that person. And not just going after that person with maybe a squad here, but if it's in this concentrated area, sending everybody over there. And I think that's the shift that we're making right now, right? This citywide approach puts resources in an area of the city where maybe they should have had more resources from the beginning. Right? In an equitable way that matches the violence that we're seeing. So I think it's good. I think that's how we're doing it. I think that's how we hold ourselves accountable in real time, that this isn't a 9-to-5 job for us. That our phones, both these phones that are sitting to my right are glued to my hip. Right? I don't have the luxury of turning it off, because when the technology alerts us that, hey, there's 250 rounds that have been shot in this particular neighborhood, I better be making some calls, because I know that my boss is going to be asking me about, hey, were you tracking on this? Is there any information about it, right? The same thing, like I would expect community members when that happens to be calling their council members and going, hey, what's going on with this? What are you doing from an elected leader standpoint to help support public safety? Right? I think that's how we all do it. We all have responsibility here. Public safety is an Oakland thing.
One community.
Yep.
Final words.
He doesn't have any final words.
Real.
That was it.
It's been nice.
That's it. That's doing good. That's it. Appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. See you guys in 2 weeks when we have Chief Armstrong once again talking about things and taking questions from the community. That will happen on the 12th of May.